This is not in the desert. So a lot of complexities that are going just in to deliver a weapon, let alone all the dynamics of this battle space. So spicy.
And we showed up at dusk. So the first delivery was at night.
That's it. right where you want to be. And oh, by the way, yeah, those listening too is like you said MVG. You had MVGs, but it was it's like dusk time. That hour before, the hour after. Like MVGs are absolutely, your eyeball is absolutely useless. The beginning part of that, and your MVGs once the sun goes down for about an hour or so are completely useless, just because there's either not enough light or there's too much light for the MVGs there. So.
And it was zero illume because that's what the Army likes to do.
That's perfect. Yeah. So you've painted a pretty spicy picture, but I just think too, it's like, all right, now you guys meet up with the tanker, you're going to a space that you've never been to, and now you're driving into Afghanistan. Talk to me about what the flow was, following the tanker. I mean, the boulevard, I imagine, might have been established at that point or been worked out. For B-1s trucking up that way and B-52s, but you're driving up into Afghanistan. What's next once you get into country?
So we were just reading the smart pack the whole way. And because, I got handed a map that was instantly worthless because all of the friendly plots, picture a map. So the battle space is 5 kilometers by 9 kilometers. Okay. If you quickly do the math, it's only about and I teach this as a case study at the Air Force Academy. So I've mapped it out. It's the Air Force Academy. That's how big this battle space is. And there's all these blue circles that got plotted out on our map because they went in and pulled all these friendly positions. And so for my lifetime, I'd been training linear CAS, right? There's a forward line of troops. There's a forward edge of the battle area. Good guys on one side, bad guys on the other side, generally speaking. Well, now it's nonlinear. This is our first experience with a full up nonlinear battlefield. It's just red and blue circles all botched up inside of each other. So we know, and we know that those positions are going to change. It takes the hog 5 hours to get from Kuwait to Afghanistan. And so about our third air refueling, the tanker. So again, we don't have the tech we have now, right? We don't have SATCOM. We don't, and so the tankers are using HF to reach back to the KAOC to try to give us updates, but it's limited. We check in with, it's not even AWACS because we didn't have enough AWACS aircraft over there to provide 24-hour coverage. So AWACS and JSTARS are swapping out. JSTARS has no training on how to do air battle management. And so that we check in with JSTARS and they pretty much we have no AO update. They just hand us a frequency and clear us into the kill box.
A10A, imagine INS that drifts, correct?
We do have IGI. So we have embedded GPS INS at this time. Radio wise, I have a UHF, a VHF, and a Fox mic.
Okay. Because that's one aspect too, right? The Viper didn't get the IGI for a while, but if your system is drifting, and then let alone you don't have maps, you don't have a moving map, it's like just finding this place, right, and where you're going. And oh, by the way, it's a battle, so like you mentioned, it's not a linear battle space, and people are moving. Okay, so again, a few hurdles. You check in. And then you're checking in at dusk. I imagine it's complete chaos. Does a JTAC have control and have SA of what's going on there, or what are things? How is it being built? How's the stack being built?
There is no stack. So what was happening, and now this is hindsight, but we don't know. We check in, we get cleared into, the kill box 17 India is a 30 by 30 mile kill box. But again, the battle space is really small within it. No idea who's in there. I get handed a frequency and not even a call sign. And there's no one on that frequency. So Kanan and I just start rolling frequencies out of the smart pack. And we finally get to a frequency and there's 3 JTACs on the frequency, all screaming troops in contact. And one of them is saying emergency CAS. And so at the time, we didn't have that was the term. We didn't have CAS without a qualified JTAC, because the term JTAC didn't even exist. It was ETAC. And so I know that I've got a kid who's on the radio, who's likely an Army Forward Observer or somebody, but they're not an ETAC. And they're screaming danger, or they're troops in contact. And so we have to pick who we're going to support. The kid's call sign was White Lightning Bravo. And so we choose to support him mainly because it's ECAS, and I'm measuring the octaves of voices. And he's in trouble, I can tell. And so we check in with him. There's no AO update. There's we're troops in contact, RPG heavy machine gun, 700 meters to the south, request bombs cleared hot. And so, we train to this scenario, right? Like we teach and train, like when you're in this situation, you got to start pulling info. You're not going to get a 9-line. So what is the bare bones information you need to prosecute an attack accurately without killing the friendlies? And, in this case, I'm like, do you have a grid or a location 700 meters south? That's not helpful because I don't know where he is. And so I said, do you have any ability to mark the target? No. And, we found out later that when they hit the ground, they were in contact immediately. So a lot of these guys just dumped gear. And so they had no marking, IR marking lasers or mules, the old school soft lam lasers. They had nothing. And so in this case, he came up with, he's like, hey, I've got an IR strobe. So he took his strobe and he strapped it to the top of his helmet. And he's like, that's my position. 700 meters south is your target. And we can see tracers going everywhere. I mean, the valley was on fire. And, and I just didn't, and again, I'm looking through NVGs. I have no way to range this thing. And so I just told K9, I said, look, I'm going to put 2 Willie Pete's down because, as you know, Willie Pete's highly effective at night on goggles. It stays there for a while. So I said, I'm going to put 2 Willie Pete's down to try to create a yardstick to figure out ranges so we can start moving off of that. And so I put the rocket closest to him where I thought maybe 700 meters was. And he told us from the closest rocket, move it 300 meters closer. So now I go, okay, then that rocket's at about 1,000 meters, so at about a click, but now, by the way, we're dropping Airburst Mark 82s, which we didn't have, they never Seek Eagled risk estimate distances for the Airburst. So the rule of thumb at the time was 1,000 meters. You didn't want to go inside of that. And now I have no idea if he knows it's 700 meters or not. Now he's moving it even closer. Yeah. And so, needless to say, the seat cushion's up my rear end at this point. And I'm really worried about killing friendlies. But, they're in heavy contact, so we got to do something. And so I'm now trying to climb back to altitude. And I told K9, I'm like, okay, there's the yardstick, move it 300 meters closer. Let's rip 2, because dumb bombs, we're never going to drop a single, just because of the accuracy issue. And so I said, just rip 2, try to bracket it, because these guys are out in the open and they're spread out anyway. So he rolls in, cleared hot, and 2 bombs go off, and it seems like an eternity till I hear something on the radio. I'm convinced we killed them, our guys, or at least fragged the kid on the radio.